Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast, sponsored by First Federal Bank. It's Wednesday, May 18th, and I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Sports wagering is coming to Kansas. Last week, Governor Laura Kelly signed a bipartisan bill into law that opens the doors to betting on the Chiefs, Royals, Jayhawks, Tigers, Wildcats, all the teams, all the leagues. On today's show, I speak with beat writers Jesse Newell and Kellis Robinett about the topic. They come at it from unique perspectives. We all have made sports wagers, mostly in Nevada, over the years. And as sports writers, part of our job is to tell you who we think is going to win a game and why. No doubt people who have a little money on the games have read these stories and predictions and perhaps were influenced by them. But now there's a real possibility of many more people in our area who are wagering on those games. We talk about that. We talk about our betting experiences, our favorite wagers, and much more. I suspect as the weeks and months unfold and Kansas, and eventually Missouri, get things up and running, we'll have many more conversations about sports wagering. But this is our first. The reason that I asked you guys to be part of this conversation is because in knowing you for as long as I have noticed a, shall we say, interest in games of chance with both Kellis Robinett and Jesse Newell. And games of chance are coming to Kansas at some point in the future after the state legislature passed sports betting in the state. And so Kansas joins, I think it's a majority of states now in the U.S. that have sports betting. I think it's going to be here for football season. There's some question about exactly when it's going to arrive. But guys, I just want to have a little conversation about, first of all, your sports wagering experience and interest. How up until, a couple years ago when the Supreme Court allowed sports gambling to appear in states other than Nevada and I guess New Jersey at the time, how much sports wagering have you done? Kellis, we'll start with you. What it used to have to go to Nevada to do it in person, and of course you can do it illegally online. But without getting yourself in trouble, how much sports wagering have you done?
Well, fortunately, there's nothing to incriminate me there. I've always done it just when I'm in Nevada. But I have made a few trips out there in my lifetime. I like Vegas. My brother lives in Reno. For a brief time, I lived in Idaho, and there was a town called Jackpot, Nevada, right across the border, like an hour and a half from where I lived. So I was it was not uncommon for me to make that drive over on like a Sunday morning and place some bets and watch NFL games. And I always just thought that was a lot of fun. There's no really, this was kind of even before fantasy football, but there's really no better way to, make somebody care a little bit about a game that they wouldn't other care about by putting a 10 spot down on something. That's cheap. They're $10, but whatever. It still gets you some skin in the game and makes things interesting. And I'm just glad that they are going to do it here because to me, I look at it a lot like selling beer at sporting events. I mean, yeah, you can choose not to do it, but you're just hurting yourself if you're not doing it. There's money to be made. People want the product. And I'm excited to see, what the future holds here now that it's going to be legal in Kansas. I'm just a little worried myself now that I can open the floodgates and do it more often, that I'm not going to lose too much money here at it. My wife's never been the most kind on when I come home and say I lost $100 here or there doing this stuff. So if that's happening every week, they're going to have to give me a raise.
Well, I think that's exactly what would happen. I think you would get a raise just to cover your gambling debts. I'm intrigued by Jackpot, Nevada. I had not heard of that. Was it a casino on the other side, or?
It's a legit town of maybe 500 people. They have a high school and everything. But yeah, you drive across. There's like four casinos, a few little houses around there for people who work in the casinos, but that's it. Drive it, you see some casinos, you drive by, it's gone. There are a lot of places like that in Nevada, I've been told.
Very nice. All right, Jesse, how about you?
Yeah, Blair, I think my experience is pretty similar to what Kellis is saying. I've been going to Vegas for a long time, and usually when you go there, you go up to a sports book. It's it's almost like a sports fan sort of stock market. You see all the lines, there's the big red and green letters and the numbers, and you're trying to figure out, hey, where can I make my mark here, and that sort of thing. And they just keep flashing across the screen. You can get the little papers out and write down what you want to do. You can look up the numbers. There's obviously lots of numbers on all these sites and people that have picks. But I think Kellis is right on with this, which is the skin in the game part, which is to add to the entertainment value of people at home. And we all have hobbies. We all have things we like to do. And that could be golf that you spend money on. It could be collections. It could be anything. But I think a lot of people, what's happened nowadays, especially when this turns in Kansas to having an app on your phone to be able to do it, is to give you a reason to wake up at 11 o'clock on a Saturday. There's a college football game that you don't care about, but you put $20 on it, and all of a sudden you're watching it with a beer and you're having a good time, and you might make a little money out of it. And so I think that's exactly what this is. I mean, I've even talked before. Iowa had this legalized a few years back. I talked before, instead of going on with my friends to a Vegas trip, that we would go get a hotel room in Iowa and go to one of their casinos and, just sports bet a bunch. But again, I mean, that's sort of what we're talking about here. This is why it makes sense to me in the state of Kansas to be able to legalize this sort of thing, is because if we're all talking about that just being an entertainment thing and having a good time, maybe making a few bucks, maybe losing a few bucks, but going to Iowa to do it, why would you not allow people to do that in the comfort of their own home and have that money go to help Kansas causes? So I do know this. It's going to be a big deal. I mean, we're talking about it right now, and we're going to be talking about it in the future months, because once there is an app out there to allow you to sports bet and or allow people on football Sundays or college football Saturdays to go to Hollywood Casino or someplace like that and make some wagers, people are going to care a heck of a lot about this, try to find an edge, try to have bets that don't lose them money like Kellis does here on the weekends. And, that's going to be a big deal. And it's been a big deal for a while. I mean, we go back to like college basketball, and I think this is sort of it's not really a secret. I've been picking KU games against the spread on the Quick Scout when I was with the KU beat for 9 straight years. And I didn't let it affect me, but every once in a while I'd get an email or a tweet from somebody, and they'd say to me, hey, thanks for your pick. Or I'm sorry that I read your pick, that sort of thing. And again, we do our jobs the same way either way and try to do the best of our ability, but there's been a market for this already. There are already people out there that have been looking at these things and trying to figure out the best way to go one way or the other. And I think in its best form, it's just a small form of entertainment and allows people, hey, on a Saturday, I'm not doing anything. I got a beer at home. I'm going to put $10 on this game. Illinois and Michigan that I wouldn't have cared about otherwise. And that sort of thing allows Kansas to make some money, allows people to have some fun in the comfort of their home on their weekends and maybe not affect too many other people while they're doing it.
Sports betting trips to Iowa. I'm trying to visualize what the Strip in Council Bluffs looks like. It's good idea. Save some money that way. You have more money to bet than flying out to Vegas. So you brought up a couple of good points, Jesse, that when it becomes legal in Kansas, when it passes, technically it becomes legal, I think on July 1st, but it's just going to take more time to get it organized and sorted out. But you will be able to wager on your phone. There'll be, depending on what betting house is you get to the Kansas Selects, I guess is the best way of putting it. You'll be able to make wagers over your phone, and is it 4 casinos in the state? I believe I read, including one of them would be the Hollywood Casino at the Legend, that's turn 2 at the Kansas Speedway, which I find probably more appealing than I think it'd be kind of be easy to wager your a bunch over your phone, but if you have to make the effort to drive out to Hollywood Casino, maybe you'll be a little more careful with your money. Maybe not. Who knows? I know that with my personal experience gambling, it's always been in Nevada, and both in Reno and Las Vegas. And I would, I'd give myself a limit, $50, $100, whatever. That would be my limit for the day. And, when I lost that in the first round of games, which was invariably true, once I had a nice parlay, but then after losing out by about mid-afternoon on a college football Saturday, I was done for the day. And, that'll be another topic conversation as we get closer to this reality is, how, gambling problems, gambling issues, and that's something that we can talk about. But just about as people who work in sports, who have access, maybe, I don't know, access to information, access, just knowledge of the team that they cover. And what, Jesse, as you said, you use that in both you guys do. You both use that in predicting games and, in print. So it's on the record, especially when it comes to K-State football and KU basketball. You guys have an advantage. Are you you go out and plan on winning some money here, Kellis, just because you know the team better? Nobody knows the team, Kansas State football, Kansas State basketball, and of course, Jesse, when you were covering KU, nobody knows those teams better than you guys, and that would seem to be a pretty big advantage.
Well, you might think so. I wish that was the case. I mean, I wish that I could go ahead and buy a beach home right now on my expected winnings. But first off, I don't know how Jesse feels about this. I don't know. I probably won't, bet anything on Kansas State games just for, that reason. I don't know if there's a conflict of interest or whatever, but I just want to say that picking against the spread is hard. It is the great equalizer. I think there are some, weird quirks you can get out there. But even like when you look at KU football, there are times when they get on this big run where they haven't covered the spread in, like a decade. You finally catch on to it and say, okay, this is the time they're, I'm betting the house on this. They're not going to cover. And then they go out and beat Texas on the road or something. So it's just a bizarre thing. It's very difficult to pick games against the spread, especially when you got big numbers, those early season games when K-State is playing Texas, Rio Grande or whatever, and do you want to lay 18 points on a game like that? I don't know. Nothing is more frustrating than seeing the team you bet on as the favorite, just be killing the other team all game and then let up in the last few minutes and give up a backdoor cover. So that kind of stuff makes it, interesting. Honestly, the success I've found the few times that I have won at gambling, it has happened before, is I've found that it's good to follow like a really smaller league that doesn't get much attention, like the Big Sky or the Horizon or something. Follow those scores, and those don't seem to be quite as closely as monitored by Vegas. And I found that in those situations, if you watch the scores a bunch, get a team that likes to cover the spread and is good at it, you can usually win some bets that way. That's kind of I don't know. Maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but I found success doing that, betting on like MAC football here and there. I can't really explain why that is, but that's kind of been my wheelhouse.
All right. First betting tip is out. And now more interest to get to follow Tuesday night MAC football on ESPN. That's where the money can be made. What do you think, Jesse? I mean, you have great knowledge of the teams that you cover. Is there an advantage there?
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, Kellis is exactly right. Like ethically, I have never bet on any game I've covered. That's just a no-no. That's just what you don't do. And anything that would jeopardize potentially my career or what I was thought of, or, even a coach or fan or administrator thinking that I have a certain lean a certain way going into a game, that's just absolutely off the table. So have never done that. Again, I hope that people followed me with the Quick Scout, because I was 54% covering against picking against the spread for KU games over those 9 years. And what you'll learn with sports betting, and again, if the people who do it professionally, okay, it's not about picking one game and betting the farm. It's about finding small edges, whether it's statistically or information wise, and putting a lot of volume in and winning over time. And so the best of the best, they'll have bad days. They'll go through bad stretches, but they trust their information over time to be able to overcome that. And I think I've read like the very top of the top people, they win about 55 to 56% of their sports bets. Those are the people that really do well. And I think the number is 52. You have to hit 52% to cover what's called the VIG or paying the sportsbook basically to take on your bet. So I think most of us, what we're talking about here is having a good time, a little bit of entertainment in your house, not betting the farm, betting the mortgage, that sort of thing, and passing the time a little bit. Maybe if you break even, you're doing pretty well, that sort of thing. But as far as getting, for KU picking 54% against the spread, I think for me, it was less like knowing information as in, hey, this player is more hurt than he really is, or that sort of thing. For me, I thought it was always sort of more, I knew Kansas really well and sort of what gave Kansas problems and what type of matchup sometimes didn't do so well. The example always comes to my mind is KU would play Texas. And this was like back in the days where Bill Self had a little bit different philosophy. It was more inside out, but they would always play Texas and they'd play a shot blocker. And I'd ask Bill Self before the game, I'd say, hey, how do you plan on attacking this shot blocker? And they would be going to Austin. And he'd say, well, you drive in, you put your chest into him, you go straight through contact. You got to get him in foul trouble. And like, I sort of knew in Austin, that's not going to work. You know what I mean? Like you don't get those guys in foul trouble in Austin. Those guys are just going to block your shot. And so like inevitably, like, well, this doesn't really look good for Kansas because they're going to drive in the shot blocker. The guy's going to block them, and then they're not going to shoot threes, and they're going to lose. And so those are maybe the sort of things I was looking at. And I think a lot of the time that did come through to fruition because I sort of maybe knew like a half of a blind spot for Kansas. And that doesn't guarantee how it plays out. Again, we see crazy results. We see KU lose to Kentucky at home by 20 when you don't expect that sort of thing. But that's what I'm talking about. The best of the best sports bettors, they think they might have a 2 or 3 point edge. There was one I remember in the Big 12 tournament where KU was a slight favorite against Iowa State. And kind of like Kellis said, I think that people didn't understand that because it was in Kansas City, that didn't mean that KU was going to have the home court advantage. Iowa State was going to have the home court advantage. And so I said, hey, the wrong team's favored here. Iowa State fans are going to come and take over the building. They did, and Iowa State ended up winning that game. So I think my quote advantage, if I had one, was just a great understanding of KU and or circumstances in these games that maybe a sports bookie from however far away is not going to have the same knowledge just because they're not ingrained with the team. They have to put up lines for 300 games a day. So that's probably where I would say the quote advantage would have been if you would have said that, but some luck comes along with that as well when you're going 53, 54%. And again, if you do that with sports betting, you're going to do just fine. You're going to have a good time and not win that much money, but not lose that much as well.
I would say the only real advantage we would have if we were to bet on these things would be in football. Me and Jesse are people who get there so early that we're in the press box. We're seeing who's warming up and everything. So we could actually get, write it in stone confirmation on who's playing and who's not. So if you were really on the fence about something, you could know for sure who's going to be out there and who's not. So maybe you'd have a few minutes head start on somebody else. But otherwise, like there's not a ton of inside information that we can get that these gambling experts don't get. I don't know how they obtain these things, but especially during like the COVID season, the lines would kind of adjust before any information was out on which teams had COVID absences and what else. And they were always spot on. I mean, it was crazy. You go into games and see that, one team had gone from a 3-point favorite to a 10-point favorite, just kind of out of the blue. And you're like, whoa, where did that come from? 2 days later, they show up and, they're missing 8 starters. And it's like, well, the cat was out of the bag there. So from our perspective, there's not a ton of inside betting information I think we can use, but I'm with Jesse. We watch enough and closely enough that there are certain things that we can see. And hopefully we can convey that in our predictions and whatnot next season and help out a little bit.
All right, guys, let's take a break here. I got some more questions for you, and we will be right back.
Buying your first home is a huge milestone, but the journey there can be confusing. First Federal Bank of Kansas City is here to make it simple. After nearly a century of serving the KC community, our loan advisors have experience in every type of housing market. With a short phone call, we can give you a free rate quote and talk through loan options. No pressure, no obligation. The road to home ownership can be simple with First Federal Bank. Get started with a free quote at ffbkc.com/homes. First Federal Bank of Kansas City, because banking is personal. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all the Star sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. All right, we're back talking sports gambling, which is coming to Kansas legally in the coming months. Don't know exactly when it's going to start, but it's coming. It's coming to Kansas, not to Missouri. So that's Missouri didn't get it passed this year. It's going to happen in Missouri. I think it'll happen in almost every state at some point, but definitely coming to Kansas probably this fall. Kellis Robinett, who covers Kansas State, is with us, as is Jesse Newell, who has covered Kansas for the past 14 years, now covering the Chiefs. What I want to ask you guys is, what's your favorite type of bet? Are you just straight up win-loss, just based on the line, or do you have other types of bets that you like? Because as people will discover when they download an app, a betting app, there are many, many choices when it comes to wagering. Jesse, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as you probably expect, I've thought way too much about this sort of thing. But so parlays are what is the most fun to do, and it's the least profitable. So for those not knowing, parlays are the ones where you put like $5 down, you pick 6 different games or 6 different outcomes. If you win like $5,000 or whatever. And inevitably, people always talk about their stories. Hey, they hit 5 of 6. Or they hit 4 or 6, you know what I mean? And if you do the math with it, the casino is not giving you good odds on the parlay. Like they are, based on how often your thing should hit, they're not giving you full money for what you should be getting. And in return, you're not paying very much money.
If you bet each of those individually, you wouldn't get the same.
You wouldn't get the multiplier effect. But basically, let's say your parlay is a 1 in 100 chance of happening. The casino's paying you, again, I'm making up a number here, but they're paying you basically that it's 60 to 1 to happening. You know what I mean? So over time, the parlay has kind of gotten known as the sucker bet. You know what I mean? It's the people who are trying to hit it rich. It's kind of like the people that go out and buy the lottery tickets. It's amazing when you hit it. It's amazingly fun. And $5 could keep you entertained all day. But again, the casino knows that. So they just tweak their numbers a little bit. So, to me, I'm more of a person that's kind of like Kellis. I'm more conservative. Again, I've studied this some. I know, there's been articles out there kind of talking about what the best of the best do. And I'm more of an information person and or numbers person, trying to figure out, are there certain places that have small edges here? And I just like to bet a single game straight up. So if I want to bet 6 games, I'll bet all 6 individually. And that might not make for as much fun, if you will. But that way, if you win 2 of 4, you didn't lose that much. If you win 4 out of 6, you're not mad because you didn't win all 6, that sort of thing. So that's the way I normally do it. What is interesting, though, is what is coming to, and I do want to mention this, on these phones and apps and what we will be talking about, and potentially what you're talking about having an edge on certain lines. This is the one that will be the one we're talking about, especially if we're talking like the Chiefs, is player props. And that's become kind of the new thing out there to get people involved with certain games. Like, hey, Sky Moore over under 38.5 yards, game 1 of the season against Arizona, that sort of thing. So again, those are the discussions we might have as well, where maybe we will have a little bit of inside knowledge. Maybe we will be talking to somebody and know, hey, they don't plan on using Sky Moore much this game. You might lean the under there, that sort of thing. So this will all be fascinating. We'll learn as we go, but I'm more of one that kind of follows the numbers and wants to give myself the best chance possible, because this does seem a little bit like, if we're going in another direction, a little bit like craps, where if you're at the casino playing craps, there's certain ways to play it where you're going to lose the least. And there's certain ways to play it that are more fun, that the casino likes you playing those certain spots. So I think in sports betting, if you just make single bets over time, you give yourself the best chance to not lose as much. But hey, if you want to have a little bit of fun and throw a parlay down, it's not going to pay off as much as it should, but I know a lot of people do that kind of for the fun value, trying to hit it big.
Are you a prop bet guy, Kellis?
I can be. When I go, traditionally when I've gone into the casino and put down some money, if it's a football weekend, what I like to do is I'll pick out 3 or 4 games that I really, really like, three or 4 bets that I like, and I'll bet those individually. But then I can't resist the parlay. I don't care how bad it is. I got to do it. Just, just $10, just $5, whatever. At any game I have any kind of inkling on, here's $5. Give me a 10-way parlay. Let's just see if it hits. I've never done the 10. I've had a few 3 hit. I've had a few 4 hit. Those are always fun. The only thing that's crushing about a parlay is if like you lose your first bet of the day, then it's just
game over.
You're done. Like Jesse, I don't mind it so much. If I can get more than halfway through it, 4 or 6, whatever, I was close, kept me entertained for a while. It's worth the $10. But yeah, if you bet on the Illinois Michigan game at 11 a.m. and you missed that one, then darn it, I want my money back on this.
And you're going back up and you're betting another game.
Give me the same parlay without that one. That's what you're doing.
Get me that's kind of my system. San Jose State is what you're saying.
Yes, that's kind of my system for football betting. But I do like the idea of prop bets. I know during the NCAA tournament, just for grins and giggles, I was betting. My son was kind of he was fascinated by the idea of sports prop bets and whatnot, like, what player would score this much, over, under, and things. And I would bet him, hey, I'll bet you Dr. Pepper that David McCormick scores more than Ochai Abachi in this game, something like that. And, those were pretty fun. And I think that's actually a nice new way to get into football, especially NFL, when you got people paying attention to fantasy. Who's going to rush for more yards, who's going to catch more touchdown passes and stuff like that. I actually think there are some really intriguing possibilities in that aspect, because people are going to know, hey, this is a good rushing matchup for somebody. This is a good receiving matchup for somebody. I think that's something I'd be very interested in.
One other one that could come, guys, that's becoming big. Again, I'm fascinated to get one of these apps on my phone just to kind of see how it plays out, because I've heard people talk about it, but it's not been legal in Kansas, so you can't really do it, is the live betting. And that is another one that's very profitable if you can keep your head and not overreact to the first few minutes of what you see and think about this in a big picture sense. But I know some of the most profitable ones. James Holtauer, I think is his name, the one that was the Jeopardy champion forever. That's one of the big ways he made his money, is through live betting and kind of, again, keeping your head when everybody else is sort of panicking and believing that some fluky events on the field really are going to be what does play out over the course of the game. So that's another one, even maybe we can't help as much with that or write about that as much, but that is a way that some people have been able to make money and sort of overcome some of the odds that are stacked against them in sports betting.
Well,
can I tell you my least favorite type of bet?
Yeah, man.
I really hate the idea of laying like $1,000 to win $100, betting on just massive favorites. You're just begging to lose doing that. I've heard of people, go in at the start of these like tennis tournaments, and they bet like $20,000 on Roger Federer to beat somebody they never heard of, with the return being $20 or something like that. Like, there's got to be a better way to make money. I've never gone that extreme, but I mean, I've bet, $50 on a big favorite and just been sweating bullets on them to hold off some minnow out there to win $5. It's terrible. I'll never bet that way again.
See the winners, again, I'm talking about the sharps, and we always call them the sharps out there. The winners, it's like set it and forget it. You know what I mean? Like, they make their bets and then they go take a walk. They go on the rest of their day, because it's just like the stock market. They have done their work beforehand. And I'm going to go back to like cliche land with coaches and sports. We hear this all the time. It's process over results. So if the process was good, the results will come. And so I'm sure there is somebody out there that sees the process of Federer, thinks he's going to win 99.9% of the time, and the line says he's going to win 98% of the time. So they set it, forget it, and go take their walk and hope that their process is good. And if it's not, they'll know that with the bottom line soon enough, and they know they'll need to fix that to continue to be a profitable sports bettor in the future.
One bet I've never made that I think I will make and will enjoy just because of the length of it are season victory totals over under. I just, betting whether Oklahoma is going to win more than 9 games this football season, the Chiefs, 10.5, whatever it ends up being. I just, that keeps you engaged week to week. And you're not out of it until you're out of it. And it's probably, just take let's take the Oklahoma example. If they're 7-2 with 3 regular season games to play, you're hanging on every game. Now you're interested in what the Sooners are going to do. So maybe as for somebody who doesn't do a lot of gambling like me, and I'm sure like many people who are going to start their gambling careers when Kansas passes this bill, it's kind of an easy way to get into it and an easy one to understand as well. So I also like the suggestion, Kellis, that all of a sudden the NCAA tournament and events like the Kentucky Derby and the stakes races change for us here, because now you'll be able to bet on strike rich, right? An 80-1 shot at the Kentucky Derby, or gosh, March Madness. As if we need more reasons to be interested in college basketball around here. And Jesse, you mentioned a little while ago, this is just going to. I don't know how there can be any more interest in the Chiefs, but whatever is left on the pie, that'll be consumed, because just prop bets alone for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes over under 300 yards passing this weekend, or that type of thing. I think we're just, that'll just open up a whole new, interest in watching sports around here. I'd be interested to know, and we did get a little example of this when a conversation we had earlier in the week, just how it'll affect sports interest in an already, in a market that's already, people love their teams, right? Win or lose, people love the Chiefs and the Royals and their colleges. We heard earlier this week that a newspaper in another part of the country hired writers that were devoted to covering gambling. I was surprised to hear that, but that's how much that market believes that there's interest, a newfound interest in sports wagering. And I don't know if that'll happen here, but I do think we will see an uptick in an already fan where fans are just so invested in their teams. I think we'll see an uptick in the interest in their teams. Agree?
Yeah, totally. I think that it'll enhance, especially with the prop bets. I think it'll enhance every part of games from people's interest. And beyond that, I think it'll make people more interested in, other games going on. Like we talked about, people who maybe in the past just paid attention to KU games versus K-State or Missouri. Maybe they feel like they know those teams a little bit more, and they want some skin in the game and put a few bucks down on them here and there. I think, I don't see a downside to it as long as people do it responsibly. Like I said earlier, it's just like anything else. As long as you do it the right way, it can be a great thing.
Gosh, and fantasy sports too. And that's something I really have never done, but that's part of the equation, isn't it? Fantasy sports, those are all part of the apps, and part of the gambling experience where it's legal. So that'll, again, just, I wonder if it'll turn non-sports fans into sports gambling fans, maybe not team fans, but sports gambling fans. If the people that have resisted it for the reasons that people do resist it, will put down $10 on an NFL or a college football game, win, and think, oh, okay, this isn't so bad.
Yeah, the accessible part is what's just so great about it. Again, you wake up and maybe that London game's happening. Okay, it's 8:30 in the morning. You're not doing anything. You're sitting around your house. Go with $10 on the Lions, and I've got 3 hours of entertainment. I'm caring about a game I wouldn't have cared about before. At the end, I might have paid for my beer for the rest of the day. You know what I mean? Like that's That's the beauty of it. And the other part of the beauty of it is that, these lines are pretty close. I mean, I always say that Vegas did not get their lights from nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, they got their lights because all of us sometimes sports gamble, so you're going to be right around half the time. I mean, the line isn't going to be crazy off. You're not going to do something crazy stupid. And if you do, or if you get it wrong, you're still out $10. So I think it will change kind of the viewing habits. Maybe, as I mentioned before, it would not surprise me. I mean, I'm a guy that said I thought about one weekend going from Kansas to Iowa to hang out and have a good time. It wouldn't surprise me if some people would go from Missouri to Kansas to go have a good time with their buddies and friends and meet up at a certain place, whether it's, like a casino or buddy's house, that sort of thing. But I'm with Kellis. I think as long as it's done in a certain way, I mean, you view it as entertainment. Blair, you talked about, you have a certain limit that you start with, and you say, if you lose that money, you're comfortable losing it at the end of the day. And then I think you just have to have understanding that this is really, really hard to do over time and win. I mean, it's just really hard. So you see it as entertainment. You see it and you know that you could potentially lose that money. And every once in a while, you're going to win and have a good time. So as long as you know all those things and kind of line them up in a row, then I think it's going to be good for the state of Kansas. Could be good for fans, and it'll be definitely a higher level interest thing than it has been before. So I think us at the Star have to be ready for that and be prepared to write a lot more articles about how these props, how we see them turning out, and how potentially might be able to help people who are trying to gamble a few bucks on the weekends.
I think what we're going to see is on Saturday and Sunday mornings before all these games start across the country, we're going to see a lot of people from the Kansas City, Missouri side driving over to the Kansas City, Kansas side so that they could get their GPS tracker on their phone showing they're in Kansas. You can place some bets real quick and then drive on home.
Isn't that a great thought?
Traffic habits.
The Kansas legislators got to be loving that thought. Oh, my goodness.
Well, nothing will inspire Missouri legislators more than to have their constituents cross the state line to make bets. So you can better believe that Missouri's not too far behind on this. Great conversation, Jesse Newell and Kellis Robinett. The first of several, I suspect, we're going to have over the next few months and years on sports gambling. In fact, maybe we'll have a regular sports gambling conversation. We didn't even touch on baseball, and we're in the middle of the NBA and NHL playoffs. All of that available to wager in the future in Kansas. So, Kellis, Jesse, thanks a lot, guys. We'll talk again soon. That'll do it for today. Thanks to the SportsBeat KC production staff of Monty Davis, Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Tip of the cap to Jesse Newell and Kellis Robinett for sharing their insights. Morning Sports Edition was 35 pages today. Read all about Brady Singer's performance for the Royals against the White Sox last night, the Miami Heat's comeback against the Celtics in Game 1 of the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals, a preview of the Phil Mickelson-less PGA taking place in Tulsa, and much more. Go to liveedition.kansascity.com for more information. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC.